welcome to 13 o'clock. I'm Tom, and I'm here with Jenny, and we're your hosts, and this is our first episode. And today we're going to talk about two things. We're going to talk about a poltergeist case called The Entity, and then later on we're going to talk about some theories about the classic movie The Shining. And, okay, Jenny, so do you want to go ahead and start with Entity?
Sure, we can just jump into it if you want to.
Sure, okay, let's do that.
All right, so what we're talking about is, if you didn't know, in 1982, a rather well-known movie came out called The Entity, and Barbara Hershey was in it. And it was based on a book by Frank DeFelitta, which came out in 1978. Now, this book was actually based on a real person. It was based on a real case that was investigated by the parapsychology lab at UCLA in 1974.
Okay.
Now, the first thing, the movie is actually fairly accurate up until it gets to the really stupid ending.
Yeah.
And I'll say spoiler alert, but spoiler alert, at the end of it, they set up basically a trap using liquid helium to essentially freeze
a poltergeist.
the poltergeist.
Yeah.
And it works.
And then it busts out.
And all the skeptics are like, oh, I guess you guys were right. And the parapsychologists are vindicated.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that did not happen in real life because frozen ghosts are ridiculous.
Right.
So, but it was actually based on a real case and it was investigated.
Yeah.
So we're actually kind of going to go into the
So we're going to talk about the movie and the case.
Yes, we're going to talk about the movie and the real case. So basically, the woman in the movie was named Carla Moran, but that's not the real woman's name. The real woman's name is actually Doris Bither. It was not released until many years later.
Yeah.
And not a lot is known of her early life because she was very cagey about her past with investigators because apparently she didn't really have that happy a life leading up to that point. Which
makes you wonder.
Which it does.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of get into that at the end after I've kind of summarized. But basically, they think she was born in the Midwest somewhere, probably Illinois.
Okay.
And she moved to California with her family when she was 10. Now, her family was supposedly upper middle class family, but they were very dysfunctional. There are rumors that her parents were alcoholics, possibly abusive, although I'm not sure if that's true.
Now, she's dead now, so she's not available for any
Right.
interviews.
She's dead. Some of her children are still alive, but she is not.
She's not with us.
Right.
Okay.
So, evidently, after they moved to California, when she got into her teenage years, she and her parents really started not seeing eye to eye. There were rumors that she got into the occult. She was very rebellious, what have you. And reportedly, they disowned her. So she was kind of cast out on her own when she was 16 or so.
This getting into the occult thing, that's so stereotypical. It makes me wonder if that's actually true.
Yeah, I don't know.
I bet you that was added.
Probably. Just because so they could blame her.
Right. Inspired by The Exorcist. Oh, it's always the Ouija boards.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Bringing those demons in. Yeah. So I don't know if that's the case. But anyway. Yeah. So after she was cast out of her family home, evidently, she ended up about as you would expect. She ended up with a lot of abusive boyfriends, several pregnancies.
She fell into the wrong hands.
Yes, exactly. And as happens with young girls that age.
Yeah.
And by the time she came to the attention of parapsychologists, she would not say how old she was, but they said she appeared to be in her mid-30s. She lived in Culver City, California at the time. She had 4 children, a 16-year-old son, a 13-year-old son, a 10-year-old son, and a 6-year-old daughter. I believe these were all from different fathers. She was a single mother at the time. I think she did have a boyfriend at some point during this investigation.
That's weird. She wouldn't even say how old she was?
No.
Weird.
Yeah.
I wonder why. Come on, couldn't be that
Well,
vain,
they said, I mean, the guy that investigated it, he said she was rather uncommunicative.
Okay.
But that's kind of as far as he would go on that.
All right.
But here's the thing. Now, like, in the movie, I actually didn't kind of believe this because it seemed too coincidental when I saw the movie. how she met up with the parapsychologist actually seemed like too perfect to be true. Mm-hmm. But evidently, according to her son and according to Dr. Barry Taff, who was the main guy that investigated, he said this is how it happened. Doris Bither was in a bookstore in Culver City, just browsing around, and she heard two men talking about the paranormal.
Okay.
And she approached them and said, hey, I have all this. That sounds like what's happening to me. And these two men happened to be Dr. Barry Taff and his colleague, Carrie Gaynor, who were from the parapsychology lab at UCLA. Now, obviously, they probably get cranks walking up to them all the time saying, oh my God, I have that paranormal shit happening to me too. So at first they were just kind of like, yeah, whatevs. But, she was very insistent. And when she told them, now I think she told them in the bookstore what the most startling manifestation of this phenomena was, which was essentially ghost rape.
Yeah.
She claimed that these entities, which she believed they were outside entities, I don't know if she thought they were demons, but she thought they were outside entities, and they would rape her, or rather, two of them would hold her down while the third would rape her.
Yeah, I imagine they were kind of like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. Yeah, so, and I'm writing a book about poltergeist phenomena in general. I'm kind of summarizing a bunch of cases and talking about a bunch of theories and stuff like that. And what I was doing was I was putting like all the cases into themed chapters, right? Ones that caused fires or ones that made puddles or whatever. And I wanted to write about this one, so I was going to do a whole chapter about spirit rape, essentially, or spectrophilia, if you prefer.
God.
But here was the weird thing. This really seems to be kind of the only case I could find through using my Google Foo that was this type of thing, that was rape, that someone essentially, because spectrophilia, that's actually a fetishy thing. Like most of the people that are into like ghost sex are into it.
Right. So they're calling the ghosts to have sex.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. So it's consensual in those cases. All the other ones I found were evidently consensual, and probably crackpot saying, yeah, I fucked a ghost, whatever.
Yeah.
But so this was the only case of like spirit rape, like I said. But she had a lot of visible bruises on her body, including on her inner thighs and things of that nature. So finally, she talked the parapsychologist into visiting her house. Now, Barry Taff has written a report of this. I read like kind of the abstract and an interview with him about it. And I think there's a YouTube video too, like where he's talking. Yeah,
he's a character himself, actually.
Yeah, he is. And he said that when he first got to the house, which I've seen pictures of the house, it's not like a shack, but it's pretty dumpy. I mean, she was a single mom. She was living there with her 4 kids.
Looked like lower middle class California, little bungalow type.
Yeah, as it would. Now, Barry Taff said that the family were, quote unquote, living in their own filth.
Yeah, that brings images to mind.
Right, so I'm not really sure if we're talking about like a hoarder situation, like I said. And I think we said this before about the woman on Hoarders with the poop in the bags that made the floor collapse. I don't know if it was that bad.
It didn't look that bad from the video footage.
No. I think it was just kind of a case of it being messy, or having old pizza boxes and garbage not taken
garbage out.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it was something like that. Maybe
white trash living.
Right. Which,
we assume. We weren't there.
Yeah. So they get to the house, and her 4 children are willing to corroborate her story, particularly the older 2 sons. And all the children said that they had witnessed strange things happening in the home, things moving around. Doris, and I believe one of the children, also said that sometimes they would be walking around the house and it would feel like they would run into what seemed to be an invisible person. And
they'd run into an invisible person. They'd actually hit something. Yeah. They'd feel it.
Right.
This is what they claim.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and also the older son said that his bedroom shared a wall with his mother's, and he said he often heard her screaming in the next room, heard her being thrown around,
moaning.
Yes.
God.
Oh, this poor woman.
Yeah,
so,
all right. Okay.
So yeah.
Poor kids.
I know we don't mean to make fun.
We don't
of her,
know what's
sorry.
going
It's
on.
it. You know, it might be really shitty. I don't know what it's like
Right.
to be raped by a ghost. I just, you know. So, and the son also said that he had seen his mother being attacked in this way, and that he had tried to intervene, and he had been thrown back against a wall by an unseen force. Okay. Yes.
All right.
So the fact that the kids were willing to corroborate the story made the parapsychologist think, well, maybe we'll look into this a little bit more. So they arranged to have other researchers from the university come to the house. Now, they were there for an investigation over about a 10-week period. And evidently, I mean, they recorded some pretty startling things. No one saw any of the spirit rape happening in front of their faces.
All right.
However, many of the researchers claimed that what they would do was, because the entity seemed to respond to Doris, they would have her sit in her room and swear or like try to provoke the entity in some way to get it to manifest itself.
Okay.
So they said when she did this, they would all clearly see a green light emanating kind of from thin air. And they said this light was dimensional, meaning you could see all the way around it. So it wasn't just like reflected on the wall or what have you.
All right.
They said it also seemed to respond to their voices, to their questions, as though it was intelligent. Like, you know, it would brighten when they would ask it something or something like that.
Now, how many people would see this at a time? Do you have that information?
That I'm not super sure. Like, there were about 30 people in and out of the investigation. Like, and if you can see some of the photos, and they're online somewhere, I can probably put them on the YouTube video, but you can see from the pictures that there are many people like around the edges of the room. Mm-hmm. So there were a lot of people there at one time, and they all claim to have seen this green light. Now, a few of the people, including Frank DeFelitta, the guy who wrote the book, he was actually there for some of the sessions.
Okay.
And he said, and I believe also one of the photographers said, that sometimes the green light looked kind of like it was trying to form into a humanoid shape.
All right.
Like they would kind of see shoulders and arm musculature and a bald head, things like that. No one ever saw any feet or a face or anything like that, but it just kind of looked like silhouette-like.
All right. Weird.
Yeah, although none of these were ever captured on camera. Okay. But they did get some other photo anomalies.
Now, they weren't captured on camera. They were taking photos, but they would just nothing show up.
Yeah, nothing would show up, or it would just show up like just with strange light anomalies, which was another thing I was gonna, because sometimes Doris would say that the entity was in a particular place and no one would see it, but when they took a picture of the spot she said, then something weird would come out on the photo.
Right.
Like, for example, there was one point she was sitting on her bed and she said to the photographer, it's up in the corner of the room. Mm-hmm. And he took a picture. He couldn't see anything. He took a picture up there with his Polaroid, and the Polaroid was almost completely whited out. Mm-hmm. So he thought something was the matter with the camera. Mm-hmm. So he took another photo of the upper corner, and that was also almost all whited out. And then he said to Doris, well, tell me when the entity isn't up there anymore. So she told him when it was gone, and then he took a picture of the same corner, and it looked normal.
Okay.
And the same thing happened later. She said, the entity's right in front of my face. He couldn't see it, but he took a picture of her, and she was almost completely whited out. All you can see was like the edge of her hair or whatever. And same thing happened. He took 2 pictures. They were whited out. Then she said, okay, it's gone. Took a picture of her, and the picture was normal.
Okay.
Now, probably the most famous photo from this investigation is the one, and maybe some of you guys have seen it, but it's a black and white photo. It's of Doris. She's sitting on her bed, kind of with her head down, and right over her head is this really, really bright arc of light. And there's like a littler arc up to the left, I think. Now, why this is significant is because if the light had been, because there was a wall behind Doris, like, you know, the corner of a wall, the one wall and then the other one was perpendicular. So he said, now if this light had been reflected on the wall, like from a flashlight or whatever, then, the light would be bent because
it was in a corner. It's hitting a corner, supposedly. Right.
But the arc doesn't do that, suggesting that it is floating in space.
Okay.
Above her head, that it has 3 dimensions.
Does it look 3-dimensional when you see the photo?
Sort of.
Okay.
I mean, when you're just looking at it just casually, you're just kind of like, what's the big deal?
And it's just a little bent arc of light?
Yeah, it's pretty big, actually. And it's like maybe a foot or 2 above her head.
How wide does it appear to be?
Maybe 6 inches.
Oh, okay, so it's small.
Maybe a little bit, actually, maybe a little bit wider.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to tell from the photo. It's like, it's hard to tell how close to the camera it is.
Right, okay.
And evidently they sent this picture to, I think it was Popular Photography magazine at the time. And this was like, I don't know about now. I don't even know if that magazine's still around. But at the time, it was the only quote unquote ghost photo that they had ever published because they couldn't determine any fakery present. They said, if that was a light that was reflected from somewhere else, it should have bent on the wall.
I saw a photo from this case also one time. It looked like a little ball of light down by the floor. I think it was by the floor or up against a wall where the wall meets the floor. Yeah. Did you see that? Or was it the wall meets the ceiling? Yeah. It looked like a little ball of light. And it was kind of...
yeah, I think I know what photo you're talking about. Yeah.
I would say about the size of a ping pong ball. And it was weird shaped. Yeah. And you could tell that it was casting light on the wall. Right. And that was in the 70s. It was kind of before lasers. But it looked like a little glowing ball. Huh. It's out there. You'll see it. Yeah. Yeah, there's pictures of this. One. Yeah. Okay. I kind of remember it, but I looked at so many pictures from the case. And I saw there was a little documentary where the guy was showing the Polaroids. That they were saying that occasionally they'd see little balls of light go through the air, sideways. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I had forgotten about that. I think they were green. Yeah. Like little comets. Yeah. That's what it said, yeah. Yeah. Several of them reported that also. And these were supposedly, scientists, they were people students from the university. Yeah, they were students studying to be parapsychologists or studying that. It's weird. It's weird, such bizarre claims, and then you have people from a university going there and confirming some of it at least. Yeah. Which now, I guess this happened. There was a lot of people that were involved in it that saw it. Yeah. Now, more controversial are the spirit rape allegations because, as I said, the only physical evidence they had of that was the bruising that they found on her, which obviously could have been caused by no one actually saw it happen. Means, other than the son. The kids said they had seen it happen. Well, was it just throwing her around, or was it actually raping her? See, that they didn't really say. Right. The son said he'd seen her thrown around, but I don't know if he had never actually seen her being quote unquote raped, or if he just didn't want to say it because that was his mom and ew. You know what I mean? So I'm not really sure. Like, he seemed a little... I read one interview with him. His name is Brian Harris, I believe. And there's an interview with him online. And I think it's from a few years ago. And he was saying, the movie was pretty accurate. Yeah, that's what happened. He got thrown back against the wall and things like that. He was saying now later on, there were some allegations about his mom that were probably not true. Mm-hmm. I think even Dr. Barry Taff said that their house had been condemned. And he said, that's bullshit. That's not true. That's not what happened. And some people said that his mom was a drunk. And, he said that wasn't really true either. Okay. He said she did drink some after the shit started hitting the fan because, you would. If you're being raped by ghosts. So I'm not really sure where. And like I said, Doris Bither herself seemed uncommunicative largely. She wanted help, but she didn't seem to really want to open up to the investigators. Which that's not the way she's really portrayed in the movie. Is it? Yeah, in the movie, she kind of seems a lot different. I mean, it does have similarities, but the thing is, Dr. Taff said he would have really liked if she had undergone some psychological testing, physical testing. But she didn't? But she refused. Okay, all right. So, she has something to hide, something weird. Maybe, which in a way might have caused a lot of the speculation about her later. Right. That, one, that she was making it up. Two, that she was mentally ill or that she had some kind of strange psychosexual thing going on with her son. Just because you're mentally ill doesn't necessarily mean the phenomenon isn't happening. Because people were seeing it.
That's true.
You might, maybe you're mentally ill and you manifest this.
And it manifested that way, which is also a possibility. Right. I mean, because particularly, like I said, she was not a particularly happy woman. She had like a lot of problems, and she'd been abused for much of her young life. So that might have been evidently. So that might have been coming out in that particular way. Now, after the investigation, I think I was going to say I think the rape stopped, but I guess they didn't. Well, according to her, they didn't.
Right.
Some of the other phenomena seemed to dissipate somewhat. Now, the kids kind of moved away. They kind of lost track of their mom. Mm-hmm. In later years, she still claimed that she called them hitchhikers, I think, like spiritual hitchhikers.
Okay. So
she thought they were like attached to her, yeah. And she claimed later, there are rumors that she later claimed that a ghost or one of these hitchhikers had impregnated her.
Impregnated her.
Yes.
Okay.
And obviously that is not confirmed. There's no hospital anywhere that said she gave birth to a little baby that looked like Casper or anything like that.
Laughing about it, but
yeah,
must have been. She must have thought she got impregnated somehow.
Yeah, there is such a thing as a hysterical pregnancy. Like if people believe hard enough that they're pregnant, then they will manifest some of the.
But no child's kind of born.
No, obviously,
right?
I've never seen one that hard.
Must have been something like that. Must have been something like that.
Where it was like total immaculate conception. You just imagined a baby and put it in there.
Anakin Skywalker pops out.
Yeah.
There was no father.
It was just the midichlorians.
Yeah.
But let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
But so at any rate, yeah, she said she'd been impregnated by ghosts, and that was kind of sad. But evidently she was bothered by these hitchhikers for the rest of her life, and she died actually quite young. She died of pulmonary failure. I think she was 59.
Pretty young, yeah.
Yeah, so she's
hard
been
living.
Dead a while. I guess so, yeah. And it's actually kind of, I know we're kind of like making jokes about Casper babies and stuff like that, but
well, this was a while ago.
Yeah, it is kind of a sad story.
Yeah,
it is kind of a sad story. And so, what do we think? I mean, do we think this shit really happened? Much of it really happened? Do we think there's some cause behind it?
Well, I think it's just classic poltergeist. And if I don't know, it evidently happened. You had a lot of witnesses to it, so I would just say it was classic poltergeist, which is not ghost per se, but it's just a manifestation of psychic force under the influence of the subconscious. So I'd say she's probably had a lot of internal conflicts that she couldn't express, a lot of pent-up anxieties, and I guess you could say like her subconscious kind of became astrally projected, if that's what you want to say, and just became whatever characters she needed in order to torment herself. Might have been some kind of manifestation of her own guilt. Difficult to say. We didn't meet her, and we didn't have anything to do with the case. We didn't see it. We just have to go with, what was written, what was reported.
Yeah.
But I think the case did happen. And I think it happened as described by the witnesses, especially the university witnesses. I wouldn't really put much weight into what the poltergeist focus thought of it. That's just the way she imagined it, imagining it as three people raping her. I think she was doing it to herself on some weird level. But I think the phenomenon happened.
I think I agree with you there.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention too that her, her common thing was, it was the three entities, two little ones and one big one, she called them. Now, the children said there was a fourth one, and they called him Mr. Who's It. And the son, not the oldest son, but the middle son.
Yeah.
He said that he thought this was the ghost of his grandfather.
Weird.
Because apparently, he said that's
it
looked like.
That would be her dad, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that's some weird. That infers something weird.
It does,
Did something go down with her and her dad? I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, yeah, we can speculate. We don't know. Because like I said, a lot was not, she would not give up a lot of, she wouldn't divulge a lot of details about her past.
I think the case is real, but I don't think we know enough to draw any conclusions.
Right. It's just, it's
but
just
the movie's worth watching.
Except for the end.
It's just that the end is ridiculous.
I just can't believe it. I don't, like, what, like, whose rectum did they pull that out of?
I don't know.
I mean, why would you even think of that?
Well, it's Hollywood. They have to have a big climactic end, and it has to have some element of an action movie, I guess you could say. So
I guess,
freeze.
But come on.
Well, without that, maybe Ghostbusters never would have happened.
True.
Where they were trying to catch ghosts and put them in boxes.
Put in a trap ghost.
Yeah.
But still, freezing, like, ghost
Don't cross the lines. Was it line? No,
streams.
The streams. Don't cross the streams.
I would never think of doing frozen ghost pudding pops.
No.
I would never think of that. That's just like the stupid. Well, even if I did think of it, I'd be like, no, that's fucking dumb. And then I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
It's like the ghost traps on that fucking that ghost asylum show.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
That's on Destination America, where there's like, well, we're gonna build a ghost trap and it has fucking a bug zapper light in it, and then there's like barbed wire or whatever. Or what was the one? The funny thing too is that we were watching it one day. Yeah. And you said, oh, they should make a trap with like all these mirrors inside. So like the ghost will go in there and it'll be trapped by all the mirrors.
Yeah, just take a box and put mirrors in it. And on the next
episode, that was the exact trap they designed.
A box with mirrors on the inside. Right. He'll go in there and he'll be confused. He'll never be able to get out.
Yeah, it'll be like a fun house ghost trap. So yeah, that was.
Yeah, it's just a comedy show.
That was fun. And
ghost
they're
programs
super rednecky. I mean, like they're more rednecky than anybody.
All these ghost programs on cable have just really gone downhill. They've just run out of. I mean, there's so many of them. Destination America. That's like pretty much the whole channel. It's the ghost channel.
I don't think I ever see normal shows on it. Didn't they used to have like travel shows?
They used to, but hey, they got rednecks catching ghosts, so people would rather watch that. I mean, who watches TV?
No, that's true.
Hardly anyone.
I do kind of like Ghost Brothers, though, I gotta say.
Yeah, Ghost Brothers was fun.
Because at least they're self-aware.
Yeah.
And that they're being funny.
The best one was A Haunting, the first 3 seasons. After that, and Paranormal Witness was okay for, 2 seasons? The pilot season, and then season 1, then they all started going downhill.
Well, they started getting ludicrous after a while. It's almost like they kind of had to top themselves from the previous seasons. They're like, hey, we're going to put werewolves in this one.
And they hyped the cases.
Yeah.
The person will say one thing, and then what they show on the screen, how it's portrayed, is totally different.
Here's what bothers me about that. Yeah, here's what bothers me about that. It's like, they'll have the person interviewing, and they'll say, oh, I felt really weird, like the hair stood up on the back of my neck, right? And on the reconstruction,
they'll show the ghost.
They'll show the ghost like behind them.
Yeah,
like the person. I'm like, they didn't say they saw that.
Right.
I'm like, just don't make it so obvious. You know what I mean?
If you guys hear a weird whistling sound, that's not ghost. That's me vaping.
Oh, you ruined it. You should have just said, what was that?
Yeah, they'll have comments. What is that strange noise back there?
Yeah, we could have had like a whole conspiracy theory about that going on.
That's just me inhaling.
Oh man.
Yeah. Oh well.
Now you ruined it.
Okay, this is. I think we're pretty much done with the entity, right?
Yeah, I think we kind of discussed that. If anybody's listening to that and is interested or has any other information about it, it'll be like a very small section in my next book that's coming out.
Yeah, there'll be a bunch of other.
Yeah, there's like a ton of other, like 50 other cases in there too. I'm gonna tell you, it's just one of the ones. But it was, like I said, it was the only ghost rape one that I could find. And nobody write me with ghost rape stories. I don't believe you. Okay, I don't believe
That's
you.
That's funny. Okay, next on the list is Shining.
Yes, and this is one of my favorite topics to talk about because we talk about this all the time and we just like go on and on about it because it's just so fascinating.
We've seen The Shining a million times.
We've seen The Shining a million times, and we've had this. And here's the cool thing. And so I don't know if you guys remember, like a few years ago, this documentary came out called Room 237, and it was about all the. I don't know if it was like so much the most common or the craziest conspiracy theories about The Shining, because there's a lot of those. There's like a whole wiki. Yeah. Of conspiracy theories about
there are whole YouTube channels dedicated to analyzing every single scene in The Shining.
Now, I have to say, like, I'm really interested in these conspiracy theories that people come up with, but I think 75% of them are largely bullshit, because it seems to me that a lot of the most common ones, like, for example, it was Stanley Kubrick's guilt over faking the moon landing.
Yeah. Moon landing hoax.
Yeah, which, whatever.
Don't tell Buzz Aldrin.
Yeah,
He'll punch yeah.
right in the taint.
Yeah.
But
it's funny.
But things like that conspiracy, which is probably the most common one that people think of when they think of Shining conspiracies, and the one where it's about the Holocaust, which I don't get that at all.
No, I don't think it has anything to do with the Holocaust.
Because here's the thing. The moon landing one, what is the evidence that people give for that? Okay, the Apollo sweater,
with the sweater
that Danny has on, and what else? That's it, right?
If I remember correctly, it had something to do with it didn't have something to do with numerology also in that scene. You could pick that scene apart. You could write anything you wanted.
Now, I'm not saying that there's not there must be some kind of significance with the numbers, because he did reuse the numbers 12 and 42 like a bunch of times.
Yeah.
So that's got to mean something. What it means, I don't know. But and also and that kind of relates back to the World War II Holocaust one, which, like I said, it seems to me that the only evidence for that is, one, he has a German typewriter, and two, the number 42 reappears all the time, which 1942, that was the first year of the final solution.
Yeah, I'm not buying it.
That seems like a stretch.
No.
Now, there has to be something significant about the number 42, though, because Kubrick changed the number of the scary dead woman room to 237. In the book, it was 217. Now, 2 plus 3 plus 7 is 42. And now, I don't know if this is true or not, but I've seen other places.
Wait, what is it? 2 plus 3?
2 plus 3 plus 7.
Is that not
or
40?
2 times 3.
Yeah,
what is it?
That's
I don't know.
42.
It's 2 times 3.
You have to deny. You have to multiply
it's
them all
2.
together.
Yeah, it's 2 times 3.
Yeah,
I don't math. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you did math.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I meant. And I've also seen on the internet that people said, oh, there were 42 cars in the parking lot. The number 42 appears on, I don't remember if it was a license plate. You see, I don't know. I've just seen other people say that. And we saw the movie not too long ago, but I wasn't looking for that.
I don't remember a shot of the parking lot.
I think there was when they first got there. Okay. Or when everyone was leaving. Because, they got there on the last day when everyone was leaving. Okay, I don't know. So I don't know if that's the case or not. But there is some kind of 42 thing, and there's probably a 12 thing also. But I don't know if that is it. Now, the reason we wanted to talk about this was because Tom here came up with kind of a cool, overarching thematic thrust that I don't think I've ever seen laid out quite in the same way that you laid it out.
Okay.
I've seen aspects of it talked about in other places. Mm-hmm. But I think you kind of tied it all together in a way that hasn't been done before. I don't think. I've never really seen.
Well, I guess I'm impressed with myself because I didn't.
You're impressed.
I didn't know that maybe I saw something that other people didn't see.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that people didn't come up with aspects of it, because there's a lot of little threads.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of people have these little threads, but not the whole tapestry that you kind of made out of it.
You're right. Well, where do you want me to start?
Well, let's start with one of the most common conspiracy theories, and one that I think is not bullshit, is the people that say it's Kubrick's. It's the meaning of it is it has to do with the genocide of the Native Americans by the Europeans. Yeah. Which, this is the one that is the least bullshitty to me, because obviously the Overlook Hotel is decorated with a Native American motif. Mm-hmm. Ullman tells the family at the beginning that Native American tribes had to be quote unquote repelled when they were first building the hotel, because there were a lot of attacks by the tribes that were having their land impinged upon. Yeah. So,
see, the difference between what I think it is and what I've heard people say about Native American genocide is I don't think it's actually referring to a genocide. It just refers to the Native Americans and to tribalism and to the nature of man and the nature of mankind.
And to almost a paganism in general.
Yeah, right.
So we have that aspect, which, like I said, there's all the Native American stuff, and the, some of Wendy's outfits kind of have Native American themes. There's all those shots of like the Calumet baking powder, baking soda, whatever it is, with the Indian headdress, the Native American headdress on the can.
Right. And sometimes you can see the labels very well.
Yeah.
When truth is being spoken.
Yeah.
And when later on, when lies are being spoken, they're turned around so you can't quite see all the faces.
Okay, see, I never noticed that.
Yeah, because I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. When the house is talking, when Halloran is talking to Danny, in the background you see the cans, and when they're first meeting, when Halloran first meets Danny, in the background you see all the labels of the cans.
Okay.
So he's making peace with them, that you can trust him. Later on, when Grady, was it Grady?
Yeah.
Talking to Jack while he was locked in the pantry, and he's talking to him about getting out of there and killing his family. You see that they're all turned in different directions, so you never can quite see. Which I interpreted that as meaning deception.
Yeah. Well, because, like we said before, I don't know if you guys know, but that is it's baking powder, right? It's
baking powder. It means peace pipe.
Yeah, Calumet is the brand name,
right.
And I think that means peace pipe.
Peace pipe or peace agreement, something like that.
So, and obviously that was significant because I don't know if you guys know, but the exteriors of the Outlook, that's a real hotel. It's in Colorado. I've seen it. But the interiors were all shot on a set. Built, I assume, to Kubrick's specifications. So, it's decorated the way he wanted it. And going back to what we were saying about the Native American decoration in the hotel, which actually Ullman points out to the family. It's like, yeah, this is from local tribes around here. They made all this stuff. Right. Also, which
supposedly the ones that were repelled.
Yeah. So it's like, then we took all their shit and put it and splashed it all over the walls, like you do. Mm-hmm. And but I was gonna say it's also kind of significant, with this overarching theory that the main hall, it's not a ballroom, it's the main hall where Jack sets his typewriter up. Right? Mm-hmm. Which, what is that? It's like a big lobby. I guess it's a big lobby.
It's the main lobby.
Okay, yeah, because the desks and stuff are down the hall. So it's the big lobby where he puts the table and the typewriter almost in the place where, like, the altar would be if that was a cathedral.
Right.
And in the overhead shots, it looks like a cathedral.
Right. Well, let me explain what I think it is.
Okay, and then we'll kind of go back and
little
talk
details,
about it. Okay.
Well, okay, what I think it is I think the hotel was founded as a getaway and retreat for hedonism, basically. A bunch of pleasure, a bunch of violence, a bunch of animal, animal instincts and animal drives.
Urges
and things. So it's a temple, basically. They consecrate the ground with human blood, because we assume that when they were repelling the Indians, that there were casualties.
Yes.
So that consecrated it. Then they build this temple to pleasure and hedonism and all the
animalistic
stuff. And then they co-opt all the tribal motifs of their enemies and decorate the place with that. And then a bunch of murders happen. A bunch of bad deals happen, and it kind of creates a life of its own. How is it that I put it before? It's like, help me out here. What was
it's almost like a sacrificial temple.
Yeah,
and we'll kind of go into like all of the stuff that makes us think this.
Yeah,
but it almost seems like, and I don't think that whoever built the hotel was doing this necessarily on purpose.
No, it just happened like a big ball.
It's almost like, I think the way, and when we were talking about this before, we're like, how the satanic black mass, quote unquote, whenever they show that, it's almost like an inversion of Christianity. Like they have upside down crosses and they have like an altar with the, so this is almost like the elite, the people at the top echelons of society.
Right.
It's basically inverting the pagan traditions.
Yeah, well, it's almost kind of like that there's no difference between the tribe at the top of the civilization and an alien tribe that's considered to be at the bottom of the civilization.
Right.
That they're all the same.
They're
that
co-opting their savagery.
Yeah, that they're all savages, really.
Right.
Okay.
While still kind of thinking of themselves as better.
As the better. It's all the best people come here.
Yeah,
and,
Ullman said that exactly.
Right, which were gangsters and politicians and, basically the guys at the top, the one percenters, the...
shitty people.
The New World Order, whatever you want to call them, Illuminati,
Right.
They were into all that. And that there was that it's just another tribe of savages.
Right.
That's basically how I interpreted it. Now, there was some Native American motifs in Shelley Duvall's... Clothing, where she kind of looked like she was dressed up a little bit like a Native American.
Yeah.
And then you have this, her husband, this white guy, chasing her around with an axe.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of bull motifs.
And that's another, that just occurred to me. In the book, it wasn't an axe, it was a mallet.
It was a mallet.
It was a rope mallet.
Yeah.
So Kubrick changed that too.
Yeah. And you have a lot of bull motifs. You have a Theseus motif with the maze, the Minotaur and the maze.
Which was also changed from the book, because in the book, obviously, it was hedge animals. Kubrick changed it to a maze.
Which, the story of the Minotaur is a story of child sacrifice. Where he's going to sacrifice his own child.
Yes.
All right. So its soul can join in with all these dark souls that are partying hard in another spiritual dimension.
Yeah.
All the people that were murdered or wanted to stay there after they died.
Yeah, they're all still there.
Right. It's their version of heaven. It's but it might be considered a hell.
Yeah.
And when the murders are getting ready to happen, you hear them all chanting in the background. I don't know if you catch it with the music, but they're back there chanting like a satanic chant that a human sacrifice is going to go down. Everything's a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Everyone,
And like I said, I had not noticed the chanting until you pointed it out. Where I think the point in the movie where it's the most obvious is when you see, like, right after Danny has gone out the bathroom window and run into the maze, and Shelley is running around Shelley, I call her Shelley. Wendy, that's her character's name. When she's running around the hotel with the knife, and right before she sees the dog bear blowjob thing with the guy with the tuxedo. Yeah. Right before she sees that, there's a really, really loud, like, chanting on the soundtrack, like, right before she sees that.
Yeah, well, they got a guy in a tux getting blown by a guy dressed up as a dog.
Yeah, even though I thought it was a bear.
And that's just, that's a good symbolism, of people that have no limits, and that animal and man are one and the same.
One and the same.
And, and that's the little dimension that they went off in, hedonistic party land.
Right. So basically it's almost like the Overlook Hotel could be seen as kind of almost like a temple of black magic.
Yeah.
Or sex magic, sacrificial magic.
And violence.
Yeah.
Because remember, there's murder and stuff going on in there, and suicide.
Yeah, that takes infusions of blood.
And people that drank themselves to death, and people, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I would consider it to be like, kind of like the Sith temple where Luke Skywalker confronted himself and found Darth Vader found Darth Vader in there, and then found his face behind the mask of Vader in
Empire
Strikes Back.
Yeah.
So it would be a place like that on Dagobah.
Yeah.
It's a place of evil.
Right.
Yeah.
And
most of the evil's happening in the spirit world. And some of that's trying to pull living people there. To add to its psychic energy.
Yeah. And because, like I said, there's the very significant moment in the film, right before shit starts to get weird, is Jack Nicholson walking into the Gold Ballroom, going up to the bar, and saying to himself, I'd give my soul for a drink.
Yeah.
Even just a beer, or something like that.
Even just a glass of beer.
Even just a glass of beer. Right. And then suddenly Lloyd appears behind the bar.
Yeah, it's about selling your soul, too.
Yeah, it's Faustian.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why I think there's kind of a whole... I think that, not necessarily hell in the Judeo-Christian sense, but hell in the sense of... I don't know. I feel like it's kind of more...
Well, he sold his soul for a beer in exchange for sacrificing his son.
Even though, and this isn't really gone into in the movie as much as it is in the book, the hotel didn't actually want Jack. It wanted Danny.
Right.
Because Danny was powerful.
Yeah. And Jack thought it wanted.
Jack thought it wanted. The hotel made him think that it wanted him because he was weak and he could be manipulated.
Right.
Because he was a drunk.
Right.
So they knew that by kind of kissing his ass and...
Right. Giving him what he wanted.
And giving him what he wanted.
Right.
Then he would bring them what they wanted, which was Danny.
Which I guess is the same thing that happened to Grady.
Yes. Because Grady
killed
his children also.
Right.
And that's why it's significant that Danny keeps seeing that, because those were like the last child sacrifices.
And his reward was just to be a waiter in the other dimension. Grady.
Yeah. So he kind of got fucked. Now.
Yeah.
And actually, that didn't occur to me until you just mentioned it.
He just became a servant.
Yeah, he was just a servant of
the hotel.
Well, which I guess was Lloyd also, is it because he was just a bartender, right?
I think Lloyd was the face of the hotel.
Yeah, I think Lloyd represented
that was the main collective
spirit of the hotel.
Yeah.
He was like their spokesman.
Right. I think he was the collective face of the hotel.
Because he was the one that was serving Jack drinks. He was the one giving Jack what he wanted.
Well, you have to read the book too. And in the book it makes it more clear that he's the main figure behind the hotel.
Right. And
that he may be the hotel, if I remember.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
I do kind of like that. I do kind of like that revelation about Grady, though, that they
just made him.
That I'm sure they did the same thing to him. They were like, yeah, you're the man and all this other stuff. Now kill your kids. Now fuck you. Now you're a waiter forever.
Yeah.
You don't even get to like party with all these other cool people out in the ballroom.
No, because they were rich, evidently. They were rich and they were gangsters and leaders and stuff. You're still just their servant because
and they were the ones.
He was just taking care of the place in the off season anyway when he got killed.
Right.
He wasn't of the same standing. But based on the motifs and everything and the story as it goes, it leads me to believe that the message of the story is no matter how much money you have and how much success you have, you're still just an animal.
Yeah, no matter how exalted you are.
Right.
Or how much you think of yourself.
Right. And evidently these people knew that. These souls knew that and embraced that. Because there's a lot of animal imagery and a lot of savagery imagery. You know what I'm talking about? Right. And bull imagery and minotaur and all that stuff's there. So they were people that had embraced the animal side.
Yes.
And they wanted to live that in the afterlife.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think that was kind of Kubrick's... I think he brought that to the movie. Because there wasn't really much of that in the book.
That wasn't in the book.
The book was mostly... I mean, and it's actually my favorite Stephen King book of all the books he's ever written. And... even the book didn't have that same mythic good versus evil kind of quality. I think the book was just kind of more about a haunted house that wanted Danny's energy and was using his drunk dad to get it. So it was kind of more contained within the family. And the family was just trying to get energy. I don't think... I mean, and I read the book maybe, like a year and a half ago, something like that. I didn't really get the sense of this grand mythic, animal versus human paganistic kind of motif.
Kubrick, in his other movies, he always he's into the Illuminati type conspiracies and the people at the very top being kind of evil, you know. And
like Eyes Wide Shut. Same kind of theme, I think.
Basically what he's saying is the people at the very top are just a different interpretation of the people at the very bottom.
Yeah, they're no better. They're just... Yeah.
So...
even though they're perceived as better, they're in some ways they're worse. I kind of got the impression from The Shining that he thought they were worse than the original pagans who had been on the ground. Who these elites were... they perceived them as savage, but they also kind of wanted to be them.
Yeah, well, I think they're saying that the people at the top that wanted to be like that recognized the fact that there wasn't much difference. Yeah. That these tribal warriors had strengths that they wanted, that they admired. Right. So it's not like they were decorating
and maybe freedoms also.
And the freedoms, right? Exactly. So it's not like they're decorating the inside of the hotel to diminish the Native Americans. They're honoring them. They're honoring their oneness with nature and the animal kingdom and freedoms and things. Yeah, sure.
Because that was another significant, and I think we forgot to mention this at the beginning.
Instead of them being pent up, they could be like the Indians. Yeah. Free. Laws to themselves, basically.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it, actually.
Their own little tribe.
And like I said, I don't think... I mean, the book didn't really go into a lot of that. I don't think, like I said, it had that same mythic... I don't think King thought
that way.
No. And I think that's probably why he didn't like Kubrick's adaptation.
Probably. Too deep.
Yeah, or he thought that he took his story and did something with it that he didn't intend.
Well, what you see from the Kubrick version of the movie is you see what it would have looked like if you couldn't see what was happening in the spirit world of the book.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about? Because a lot of stuff that happened in the book was happening in a realm of ghosts.
Yes.
A lot of it.
Yeah.
So, if you were there at the Overlook and weren't seeing the ghosts, you would have seen it go down pretty much like you saw in the movie.
Like you saw in the movie.
Right.
Which is exactly what I liked about Kubrick's version. Now, I don't have a problem with the book because here's the thing, and I talk about this a lot, like on my blog and other places, and Stephen King, his books are generally very good, but in a book, you can get away with shit you can't get away with in a movie. Because when you write a book, and I should know because I write some, you have to create an entire world in a reader's mind.
Right.
So you have to describe everything. You have to describe what people are thinking. You have to describe what everything looks like. You don't have any visuals.
Right.
You have to make people have visuals. In a movie, you have visuals. So you can't put everything literally up on the screen like you can in a book. And I think that that's Stephen King's weakness.
Yeah.
Is that he doesn't understand they're two completely different mediums and they have to be approached in two completely different ways. And you can really see this in was it 1997 that they made that miniseries that Stephen King directed of The Shining? Yeah,
it's about 97, I think.
And he adapted it for the screen and he directed it and it sucked.
Well, you thought it sucked. I thought it was okay. It wasn't as good as the movie. Wasn't as good as the movie.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't...
It was different. It was like the book. It was almost the book verbatim. But
right.
then they added a really bad ending to it.
Yeah.
Remember how the ending, where Danny sees his dad again after he's dead?
Yeah, that's right.
He's blowing him kisses. It was really fucking...
Yeah, that wasn't even in the book.
That was not in the book. They just added that shit. And made it really hokey. Terrible ending scene.
Well, and the problem too, and I did not like the end where it looked like he was fighting with the ghosts over the boiler controls. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and that didn't actually happen in the book. Which didn't
happen in the book also.
I don't think so.
Here's the problem. The Stephen King miniseries that they made.
They tried to redeem the father.
Yes.
And that's not what went down in the book.
No.
The father got consumed by it.
Yeah.
He was trying to release the pressure off the boiler.
Yeah.
But he was possessed, I think, at that point, wasn't he?
Yeah. Although I think he was fighting it, but I think he got killed anyway.
Right.
So at the end of the book, the whole hotel blew up, right?
Yeah, it blew up.
Which it did in the miniseries also.
Right.
And like I said, I think the problem with the miniseries is exactly what you said. He basically just took the book and put it pretty literally up on the screen. Now, the ghosts in the miniseries looked like ghosts. They had like scary monster makeup type shit on.
Bad idea.
Also, at the beginning of the miniseries, the guy, when Jack is first taking the tour of the hotel, the guy that's showing him the boiler and how it works and everything like that, just has this whole shitload of exposition telling him all these horrible things that happened at the hotel.
That's happened in the book.
And I think that was, in the book... It worked. But you can get away with it.
Exactly.
Don't do exposition in a movie. Show, don't tell. That's one of the cool thing about Kubrick's is that you have no fucking idea what's going on.
That's what makes it scary.
That's what I mean. Like, it's kind of hinted that some bad shit might happen at the hotel, but nothing concrete. Ullman doesn't say, oh, these gangsters were and this person got murdered and that person got murdered. The only time you know is when Halloran says to Danny, don't go in room 237. Right. He doesn't even tell Danny what happened in there.
Right.
You don't know what happened in there.
I remember what it was like when I was a kid. First time I saw The Shining. And the part where Scatman Crothers, Halloran, turns to Danny and looks at him and you hear that crescendo of weird chanting. Was it chanting or was it music?
Yeah.
It builds up and then he goes, and then you hear the voice. You want some ice cream, Doc?
Yeah.
Remember that? And I was like, whoa, what's that? You know?
Yeah.
And that was, and because it wasn't explained what The Shining was, that had a lot of impact.
Yeah.
And in the book, they had already kind of blown the secret of what this, you know, they already explained to you what The Shining was.
Basically psychic ability.
Right, it's a psychic ability. You could do a lot of stuff with it. It's the Force, basically.
Yeah, because Danny knew what was going to happen. He knew that the hotel was scary before he got there, and he had the, you know. But
that was very effective in a movie not to expect that.
Yeah.
Where, you know, you could...
And speaking of Danny's psychic ability, I also really liked, like, in the miniseries, now, and in the book also, Danny actually saw Tony, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he did.
He sometimes saw him, or sometimes he heard
out
his
by
voice.
A tree,
and when they put that in the miniseries, that was hokey as shit.
It didn't look right.
Like, oh, there's this nerdy guy floating by this street sign.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that just what the way that Kubrick did it was so elegant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With him talking in a different voice with his little finger. Because that's what a kid would do.
Yeah, and you don't know if the kid's nuts or what.
Right, and I think that ambiguity was much better. Yeah. Like, you don't know if the kid's just crazy or if he has something wrong with his brain, like, that makes him have a split personality, or if he really...
It's a classic movie, though. I'll tell you what, the original Shining was just fantastic. I must have seen it a million times on cable back in HBO when I was a kid.
When I was a kid, that was scary as crap. I think the first time I saw it...
If it was on, you couldn't stop watching it.
That's
you had to watch it through.
You had to watch it over and over. Yeah. Now, another thing we were talking about when we talked about this before was, now, in the book, Halloran doesn't die.
No, he doesn't die. He makes it out.
And I like that character.
Yeah.
And you were saying that you didn't really like it that Halloran got killed in the Kubrick movie, but...
Or got killed so quickly.
I mean, I don't like that, but...
They just used him as a mechanism to deliver the snowcat. That was their way out.
Pretty much.
And I thought that he should have done a little bit more before he got killed.
But see,
somebody had to die.
Yeah.
It was a horror movie. Somebody had to die.
I can see why Kubrick made that decision, and to me, I kind of like that because... One, it kind of subverted a lot of the horror movie tropes, like, oh, the guy saved the day just in the nick of time.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
shows up and instantly killed.
Yeah, because here's what happened. Like, you're kind of struggling with Halloran the whole time. And it's like, you know, he can hear Danny from Miami. Like, he can hear him from across the country. He hears him, and he's like, I gotta get on a plane. And he gets on a plane, and then he gets there, and he has to rent a snowcat, and all the roads are closed. And he's, like, struggling to get up. I gotta get up there, and I gotta get up there. And then he gets there, and he walks in the door, and he's like, hey, where is everybody? And then whack. Yeah. And to me, that was terrifying. Yeah. Because I was like, this whole movie, that poor guy's been trying to get up there, and he's going to help him. He's going to... And then, no.
Just killed.
He just walks in the door, and then Jack is there with the fucking axe, and he's just, like, digging into his stomach. And I was like, oh, man.
Well, he did save him. He gave his life to bring him the snowcat.
True.
Without that, they couldn't have
gotten... That probably wasn't what he intended.
No, but that's what happened.
And in a way, that's what made it so scary, because, I mean, Halloran had The Shining, too. Yeah. Yeah, he was psychic also. And it just kind of go to show how powerful the hotel was. Yeah. That even though he had these abilities, like, he couldn't do anything to stop it.
Weird.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, like you said, he helped him in the end, like, by getting the snowcat up there, and they escaped in that. But the fact that he couldn't help them get out, you know, to me, that was very scary. That was very scary. Yeah. And, you know, and I think we were talking too last night how Kubrick's, we liked that Kubrick's ghosts looked like people.
Just like regular people, yeah.
I mean, other than the rotting corpse lady, but she was a dead lady, so, you know, she looked like a corpse.
And she didn't look that way.
Yeah, she looked normal at the beginning. She just looked like a normal
person. She looked dead in the bathtub. Yeah. And then she looked dead when he looked at her back in the mirror.
Yeah. But to him, she looked normal. Right. And I think that was kind of a better decision. One, they didn't show a lot of ghosts, or they weren't obvious ghosts. Right. They just looked like regular people.
They showed the ballroom filled with skeletons.
True. That was right at the very end, yeah. Right. And Wendy saw that. Right. Wendy just saw that. That was almost kind of like at the end when the hotel was like, yeah, that's right, I'm haunted. Everybody can see it now.
They were in the elevator. It's a party.
Yeah. Because she didn't really see it.
Until the very end.
And she saw that guy with his head.
Yeah, well, he was the one that was saying it's a party.
Yeah. Yeah. So she didn't really see anything until the end when she saw the blowjob guy and stuff like that. But, which, you know, I can see how that scene, it's so brief, but it's really well done. Like the way she's looking down the hall and there's that door.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden that guy gets up and you're like, what the fuck? Because, you know, furries, 30s furries.
Yeah, and you have no idea the backstory or anything.
And that's what made it so creepy to me, because they're just like, who the fuck is that? What's going on?
Well, that's what it would have been like, if you didn't know what the ghosts were doing. Like when you read the book, that's what she sees.
See, and that's what I mean.
And she doesn't even know who that is. But in the book, you know who that is by the time.
Yeah. And in a way, like I said, in the book it works. The book is very scary. I remember being scared by the book. But a movie is something different. You have to just show things. You can't explain things. Or it makes things much less scary. I think The Shining is so scary because you don't know. I mean, if you haven't read the book, you wouldn't know who all those people are. You wouldn't know who that lady in the tub was. Nope. In the book you do, because you know what happened. But in that room, But in the movie, you're just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, and that's exactly what it would be like if you were there. Yeah. Which I think makes it much scarier because it's relatable.
Is there anything else about the Shining we got to mention?
I think we kind of... So basically black magic temple... Oh, I wanted to say something about the Baphomet thing. I know you think that's bullshit.
Yeah, I think it's bullshit.
But, but it could be. I mean, Kubrick was very detail-oriented. Oh, and we also have to talk about the weird geometry.
Okay, well, yeah, mention that.
Okay, so first I'm going to talk about the Baphomet thing. Yeah. We got into this earlier because of the black magic thing. Now, obviously, if you'll remember the iconic final scene of the film where they do the close-up on the black and white photograph from a New Year's party in 1924, and Jack Nicholson is in the front of the crowd, saying that he's always been there and blah, blah, blah. But in that photo, he's holding his hands in kind of a strange position. Like, one of them is raised above his head and the other one is kind of down to his side.
Yeah, and it looks like a famous drawing of a
Which Baphomet. Recalls the famous drawing of the Baphomet.
All right.
Which could tie in with the whole... Now, I'm not sure...
I think it's bullshit.
But I've heard that that photograph is actually a real photograph.
That they superimposed his face on.
His face is just superimposed over it. And so I don't know... which means that Jack Nicholson was not posed in that way for that picture. Right. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if he posed that picture... And then, or if he just found an old picture from that era.
I think it's an old picture from that era, and they just...
So he didn't pose him that way. No, but... He might have chosen that photo because of that hand thing. But like I said, that's a stretch.
Yeah, it's a stretch, and you can say that about anything.
That's true.
I don't think it had anything to do with Baphomet.
Now, one thing, although if it was accidental, then that would be kind of cool, because if the whole pagan shit was...
Okay, in the very beginning, what's the name of the manager of the hotel?
Mr. Ullman.
Okay. When they walk in, the camera follows Jack Torrance as he walks from the lobby to Ullman's office.
Right.
The camera follows him the whole time. He makes different turns. And when he gets to Ullman's office, Ullman's there in the office, and behind him is a window to the outside. And that's an impossible window. That there could not be a shot of the outside.
From that room.
From that room. Which... that it's weird. I don't think that was by accident. I think that was put in there to give you a sense of unease, because I remember being a kid feeling that something was wrong,
but not being able to put your finger on it.
Right, couldn't put my finger on it. It's like it was subliminal.
And like I said, if Kubrick did that, and it wouldn't surprise me because he was known for doing that kind of crazy shit, then he's a fucking genius. Yeah. Because I love that kind of stuff that... Something in the movie is like unsettling you, but you don't know what it is. So it's almost like it's subverting your consciousness, and going right for your subconscious, and you don't know why.
All the interior shots of the hotel are done on a set.
Yeah, and that whole set was built.
And online they showed a layout of that.
Yeah,
set.
like a floor plan.
A floor plan of it, and you can plainly see that there could not be a window to the outside. Where that office
in
was.
Ullman's office.
It's an impossible route. I think it was a fake outside shot. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It was it had curtains, and there was a light there, and there was a backdrop behind it to look like it was you could see outside, but it wasn't. It was probably only a few feet deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually there was some other shit like that too, where some of because the hallways are very twisting, like a maze, which again is another callback to the whole Theseus and the Minotaur.
Yeah, and the Minotaur
type of thing. Legend, which like we said had to do with child sacrifice, but also there was a during the last scene where Jack is chasing Danny through the maze, there's kind of a callback to Theseus, where instead of a golden thread he's using his footsteps, to get back out. And also as Jack chases him, he gets less and less human-like. Like
Yeah.
he's the way he's walking, he's starting to stagger,
Yeah.
and he's starting to growl, and like his
Yeah.
words are becoming indistinct, and so it's almost like he's a monster, like chasing. So
becomes a minotaur.
yeah, so he kind of becomes the Minotaur, like I said, which kind of ties back into that whole pagan, quote unquote, savage versus civilized type of theme that I think kind of.
And the Greeks were both.
Exactly.
They were both at the same time.
So, so there was a lot of that going on there too. And I think there was, when we were talking about the geometry, which doesn't really have anything to do with the pagan shit, but it's just kind of a cool little detail. Regardless, if you go online, I think there's a video somewhere and they show like a floor plan. Someone is actually, with a lot of time on their hands, has drawn a floor plan of the Overlook Hotel, the inside the set, and you can see that there are hallways where there should not be hallways, and just all kind of weird shit that was, I guess, done on purpose, like to unsettle you.
Yeah.
But so that was kind of our theory about the whole entire theme of The Shining. And I guess that'll probably do it for our topics.
We can wrap it up
today, so we can wrap up our show.
And we'll be back next week with a couple more. Do we have anything on the list? What do you want to do next week?
Oh my gosh, we could do. Man, don't put me on the spot like that. I don't think I have my list.
Yeah, we'll worry about it. You guys will know when we get ready.
Yeah, we'll do paranormal stuff. We can do like some cool like unsolved mysteries. Yeah. Just the kind of usual stuff that we're going to be doing. We'll have guests every now and then, depending on who we can get. That's good. We already know a bunch of people that can come on that are pretty cool, but parapsychologists and stuff like that we've worked with in the past. Check out Jenny's books. She's got a new one coming out that's untitled. One that just came out last week called House of Fire and Whispers, about Keith Linder's house. Yeah. That was investigated. That was shown. Demons in Seattle. Yeah, Demons in Seattle. And that was shown on, what was the name of that program it was shown on? Ghost Adventures. Ghost Adventures. It was on Ghost Adventures. Right, and they didn't handle that case correctly, actually. And Steve Mera got some evidence there, a bunch of AVPs and EVPs. But I guess we'll just sign out for now. See you guys next week. Probably. And don't forget, we're putting up a Facebook page. Check out our Facebook. Check out our Twitter. Check out my Amazon. Yeah, our YouTube show will have videos with this. In other words, our visuals is what I meant. Yeah. We're going to post photos of what we're talking about. And that'll be up too. And also check out my blog if you want to. It's goddessofhellfire.com. And I talk about a lot of movies. Some of the stuff we've discussed about The Shining, there are a couple articles about that on there if you want to read it in more depth than just us blabbering about it. Mm-hmm. And I have a bunch of stuff about old movies, new movies, all kind of stuff. And books too. So if you want to check that out, you can. And I guess that'll do it for our first episode. Wow, neat. Yeah, bye-bye. Bye.